everybody, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I am not at the allotment today. Although it did look like it was going to be a really lovely day. There's been quite a few summer storms today. It's been raining, we've had thunder and lightning, so I opted to film this indoors, but I will make sure that I put in some of the things that I've been doing outside so that you can see what I've been up to. So welcome back, or hi if you've not joined me here before. I do normally post a bit more regularly. Unfortunately, me and a couple of other people in my family haven't been well for the last couple of weeks, so we haven't really been doing a huge amount of gardening. Now, what that has meant is that lots of the seedlings that I planted earlier in the year unfortunately died while I was in bed unwell because they couldn't get watered and no one was around to look after them. And so, yeah, I've lost quite a lot of stuff really. Lettuce, lots of lettuces and salad crops, some peas, but I'll talk about those later, some spinach, chard. Basically all the leafy greens, and that's partly because they were inside, and I guess they probably would have managed without water for a little while, but it was also really hot while I was unwell, and they were right in the windowsill and they all got scorched. I have been able to salvage my tomatoes, the cucamelons that I planted a little bit earlier in the like in the beginning maybe of April, and a few things that are in the small greenhouse, but even in the greenhouse I still lost stuff, so it was a bit disappointing really, but I mean, these things happen, don't they? It doesn't always go to plan, and honestly I feel like with the year being the way it is and the weather being the way it is, to be honest, it's probably not the end of the world. I know that loads of people have not managed to get anything into the ground until May because of course it has been really cold in the evenings. So those of my seedlings that didn't suffer from sunburn during the day did end up suffering from frost in the night. So it was a bit of a washout really, but what I've done is I went to a local, what is the word? Oh, nursery, there we go. It'll come back eventually. I went to a local nursery and bought some salad crops. I actually bought some peas for pea shoots, and I bought a mixed lettuce, like a mixed baby leaf lettuce, and some cos lettuces because I'd lost all of those. I did manage to save, I think, 6 little germ lettuces, which I'm really hoping will grow well and do okay. I had to sort of bring them back from the brink a little bit because they'd really dried out, but they do seem to have perked back up. I suspect though what will probably happen is that those will bolt quite early because they've just been through so much stress that I might get a couple of picks off them, but in reality they're probably going to bolt quite early because so far their life has been quite stressful. One of the things I was able to do, actually just sort of as I was getting unwell, was try out the paper towel method for germinating seeds. So I used it for some lower Rosso salad, lettuce leaves, and some mixed oriental salad leaves, and also for my last ditch attempt at parsnips. So that was sort of the very last week of April. So we did that and then got sick like the next day. So I wasn't sure they were going to manage, but actually they were okay. What I did is I used like one of those old takeaway tubs, put some kitchen roll in, soaked it so that the towel stuck to the tub but there wasn't running water, and then sprinkled the seeds over. I left the lettuce seeds out by the window because lettuce needs light to germinate, and put the parsnip seeds in the airing cupboard because they need warm and dark to germinate. And actually it worked really well. I got really good germination. It was really easy transferring stuff from the paper towel straight to into some compost. And I did do it when they literally just germinated, especially the lettuce. And that made it really, really easy to move them. I just used a tiny little tool to move them from one place to the next, and then they've grown absolutely fine. So they're going to basically be like my second succession crop of lettuces, because I'm not expecting the first lot to actually survive that long. But it should give me a few more salad leaves to choose from. I'm really impressed at how well it works for the parsnips. And the reason that I've done it is I planted parsnips back in March, and at the end of April, I still had zero germination out on the plot. I just had what looked like a piece of bare soil with absolutely nothing growing in it. Now, April was quite warm during the day, but really cold at night. But here it was also really, really dry. My plot doesn't actually get particularly dry because it's really well protected by trees, and so it doesn't dry out quickly. And it hadn't dried out completely, but I did water them a couple of times, but they just didn't seem to be coming up. So I was like, let me just kind of, belt and braces approach and get some parsnips going. And so I've actually planted them into some toilet roll tubes, which I will pop some footage in for you so you can see that. And what surprised me the most is I actually went back to the plot this week, and the parsnips there have now germinated. Great news. But they're basically at exactly the same point as the ones that I've planted, that I've germinated at home and planted out into the toilet rolls. So they're not any further ahead, having been outside. And I am this did happen to me last year as well when I planted them in March. And I am wondering if actually, despite the fact that parsnips really do need a long time in the ground, that I might just be better off planting them in April, because March has such a tendency to either be completely wet and a washout, or also just really, really cold. I mean, I know there have been places that have had, snow over the last month or so, and we've had loads of hail here. I think I might just be better off planting them a bit later on. But it does now mean that I have two sets of parsnips, which is brilliant. So the ones in the allotment that I've already planted at the plot in the park, I'm going to leave there. And I will put the other set in at the plot by the house and hope that they do really well there. Now, I've pretty much planted up about half of the plot at the park now, and so I'm really pleased about that. I only did that this last week, putting in the lettuces and the peas that I bought, and one of my friends had also got some spinach and some chard as well, so she's put that in too. So the beds are finally looking a little bit fuller, which is really, really great. I think there's always like this rush, isn't there, at the beginning of the year to try and get everything done and get it all in the ground. But the weather has not been on my side, or anybody's side, I guess. So I haven't really done that, waited until this week. But I'm quite optimistic that we will get some salad crops out of them. And I've chosen to cover most of the beds with some fleece. Now, I'm not actually expecting there to be another frost. Today is the 11th of May. Last frost date's about the 15th anyway. I'm not expecting there to be more frost, and the 10-day forecast doesn't show any frost. What it does show though is really changeable weather in terms of rain. Like I said earlier today, we've had a thunderstorm and hail. So I put the fleece over actually to protect the lettuce leaves from the hail more than anything else, because the hail that we've had has honestly just been massive. And even in my garden and at home, some of my plants have had their leaves have been shredded because the hail's been really heavy and it's been really, really large. I mean, they seem to be okay and they'll perk back up and what have you, but lettuce leaves are not particularly strong. So I figured actually you would probably be better off just giving them a bit of protection. I've not bothered to protect the spinach because that should be fine in cold, harsh weather. I mean, you can grow it over winter, so I've kind of left that one out, but I have covered up all of my lettuce with my just in case, and I'm hoping that next week the weather will be better and I will be able to set them free and let them see, well, not that much sun because it's a really shaded plot, but at least, a little bit of breeze on them at the very least. And hopefully the fleece will also protect them from birds for a little bit as well. The birds don't really bother once they're well established and a bit bigger, but because some of the seedlings are quite small, I do want to keep them protected from the birds. Yeah, because it's a park, there are lots of birds and they're all really hungry, and I would rather that they ate somebody else's vegetables. So one of the things that I really like to do with gardening in general is experimenting with new things. So one of the things that I've changed this year about seed starting is that I've been using these little jiffy discs made of core. You just you pop them in water and they puff up with soil for you to be able to plant your seeds into. And actually I've quite enjoyed them, to be honest. They've been really helpful in terms of partly because of the space, because they don't take up a huge amount of space, and I've actually been putting them inside old soft fruit cartons, so like grape cartons or raspberry or strawberry cartons, because they fit in really, really well and you can get a nice even number in them. And some of those cartons come with holes and some don't. So if they don't come with holes, you could actually literally just submerge them in there in order for them to puff up. But the ones with holes are also fine. I've used them both, but they've worked really well for me. And in particular, I've been using them for brassicas. So this year I've got some kohlrabi, which is quite well established, to be honest. That's in the greenhouse. I will show you what that looks like. And I used them for those, and then I've potted them on into bigger, sort of probably 4-inch pots now. And that's been really great, actually. So I've really, really enjoyed using them. They're super, super easy. And I've been popping basically 2 seeds in each one, and then I just take out, just thin it to whichever one is the strongest, but it's worked really well. And I'm also growing some broccoli this year, just as a change, really. I've not tried broccoli before. I've never tried growing it before. So I'm growing a green-headed, like full Calabrese head. And I'm also growing some purple sprouting broccoli to have over the winter. If the Calabrese goes well, I will actually plant it again a little bit later on in the season so that I can get some more later. But so far so good. It seems to be going really well. And I don't know why, but the brassica seeds in particular seem to do really well in these little core discs. Part of it as well is that they're quite stable. So sometimes I think I have a bit of an issue with module trays in terms of getting my seedlings back out again when I want to transplant them, or I want to plant them out into the allotment plot. And I find that sometimes I struggle with getting the compost to be, I guess, firm enough to hold together and not fall apart, whereas these are super, super easy to do. And actually the roots grow out of them with no problem whatsoever. They do actually have really tiny holes in them, and as far as I know, it is biodegradable. I probably didn't check that as well as I should have done, but I'm pretty certain that they are. And definitely are better than trying to use something like peat, those peat pots, those sort of like thick cardboard pots. I actually find that they don't break down over the course of one season anyway. So yes, you can plant them, and yes, that they work fine from the point of view that your plants are okay and the roots do go outside them, but the pot itself doesn't break down very quickly. And so I used them last year, and then when I came to sort of redo my beds, I ended up having to like pull loads of them out and chuck them back in the compost because they don't actually biodegrade particularly fast. Whereas I've used toilet roll carton inners before, and they definitely will disintegrate within the 12 months of the season, quite quicker than that, to be honest. After about 5 months they've disappeared. It's a bit like when you put cardboard under the beds in when you want to do like a no dig bed. It actually does disintegrate quite quickly, just because there's loads of life in there and it isn't that thick. So yeah, I've been really enjoying those little jiffy discs anyway, so I think those are definitely one that I am keeping going forwards. I might see if there are other crops in particular that work quite well with them. But yeah, I think the size of the seed probably is quite helpful. The the little space that you have in the top isn't that big. So if you have like a massive seed, I don't know, like a squash seed, I'm not really sure that that would work as well. And I tend to plant my squash directly into pots anyway. I don't put them in modules. They start in pots, and then I just put them out. Because I think, as I have said before, I am starting my squash, all my curbit plants, possibly other than the cucamelons, a little bit later in the season. I will start them this month, but I'm trying not to start them too early because, to be honest, I don't think it really buys you any time. They're much happier a bit later on in the season anyway, and they grow really fast once it warms up. So that seems to be working quite well. And finally, the problem with my peas. So I have tried to sow peas for shoots twice now. The first set I sowed in the last week of February, and they came up, but they sort of came up and were like weirdly, had like purple mottled spots all over them. They were Meteor, the type of pea that I was growing, which I've grown before and honestly I've never had any problem with before. I did a little bit of research, and I think the issue was probably that when they first came up, they were fine. I put them out in the small greenhouse, but actually it wasn't warm enough for them. And we had quite a few frosty nights, and the frost basically damaged the leaves, and then they just stopped growing. And I wasn't sure if that was just because it was really cold and they stopped growing, but they were really, really discoloured. So they went on the compost heap. And then I tried another set of peas, the same variety, Meteor. I soaked them overnight so that they'd come up a bit quicker. And those ones I just tried to start out in the small greenhouse, and they were never inside. But they had a different issue, which was they were fine up until the point where I became unwell and then was stuck inside. And so they died a terrible death by drought. So that's why I ended up buying peas from the nursery instead, because honestly, I was just like, I can't keep doing this. It's just ridiculous. I mean, how many times can somebody plant peas, you know? And I didn't even want the peas. I only wanted the shoots anyway. But yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes things go wrong when you're trying to grow things in the garden. It's just the way it is. It's, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not like pea seeds aren't particularly expensive, so it's fine. And in fact, I still have some left. But I'm not going to plant any more peas for shoots. I am, however, going to plant some sugar snap peas that I picked up earlier in the year. I will pop a picture in because I'll say what it is. I can't remember what the name of the pea is that I'm growing, but it's like a yellow sugar snap pea. I will still need to start them off indoors because there are mice at the allotment, and mice quite like peas. So if I try to plant them directly, they'll just get pulled up and eaten really, really quickly. So I will start them inside, and I think I'm probably actually gonna keep them in the house. I don't know. I might put them in the greenhouse. I don't know how I feel about chancing it again yet. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that one. But I am gonna plant those sow those in the next week in the hope that we can actually get some sugar snap peas, which would be really, really lovely. They're a real favourite of our family. So I'm going to give that a third time's a charm and all that. So I'm hoping that that is in fact true. And this time I might actually get pea plants that survive. So anyway, I will be back next week to show you what I've been up to. I think it is starting to get a bit busier at the plot now with planting things out and a bit more sowing. I am trying not to go crazy with the sowing because I don't have tons of space, and I want to make sure that I use it wisely to definitely just to be growing the things that I know that we'll definitely eat. And I have had quite a push towards salads and greens at the plot by the park. So the plot at the house, I'm leaving quite a lot of that space free for the very many squashes and beans that I want to grow. So I'll have a chat with you guys about that next time. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.